Alexander III, the King of Scotland, actually died in
I shall tell
1286.
you of William Wallace. Among the farmers of that shire was Malcolm Wallace, a commoner with his own lands. He had two sons, John and William.
In reality, he had 3 sons and he owned his own land. Young Wallace throws the rocks with his left hand. Later, throughout the movie, he uses his right hand all the time. In the scene, what happened to the actor that was supposed to be Wallace's father? Mel Gibson replaced the dead father on the table, so he's the father and the son. Time travel conundrum, anyone? People's position changed throughout the scene. Miriam is in front of her mother, to the right of her sister. Young Wallace is close to his uncle. Miriam and her sister switch position, and Wallace further apart from his uncle. The body in the grave is far too light. It moves when the dirt hits the body. The thistle bloom that young Miriam plucks with her hands was pre-cut. The stems of those plants are prickly and tough. Parents sure put those kids to work. Those are not children's hands. That's not Highland pipes at William's father's funeral, but Julian pipes. This was a deliberate artistic decision because they sounded better. King Edward's native language was French. English doesn't become the court language in England for another 100 years.
The French will grovel to anyone with strength. But how will they believe our strength when we cannot rule the whole of our own island?
During the rock throwing contest, Hamish says he can crush Wallace like a worm. When we pan back to Wallace, the man wearing a baseball hat walks into the left side of the screen. Wallace and Miriam should be roughly the same age. The years have not been kind to Wallace.
Come do it. Even move. I will not.
Hey, you'll move.
Hamish throws the rock past Wallace over his left shoulder, but when the camera angle changes, Wallace looks at the rock flying over his right shoulder. At the wedding, the English arrive to claim the right of prima noctis. The bride whispers in Morrison's ear, "He'll be okay." The term okay did not exist at the time. Prima noctis has never been used in the entire history of the British Isles. When Morrison shrugs off the English soldier that is holding him, there is a spotlight covered with a blue tarp behind his head. When Wallace goes to Miriam's house and invites her for a ride, the mother's head covering changes several times between shots.
They go with you.
No.
Oh, no, the now, anyway.
No the now. No the now.
Miriam's hair is completely dry, but when she rushes out and jumps onto William's horse, her hair is soaked. The thistle bloom that young Miriam gave Wallace when they were children still looks fresh. Squished, but fresh. The English soldier checking out Miriam is behind the other 2 guards, but on the next shot, he is now in front of them.
Sergeant.
I see London, I see France, I see Wallace's modern underpants. Wallace runs away with a sword. Now he doesn't have a sword. Now the sword is back. The magistrate slits Miriam's throat with a knife, then wipes it off, but there is no blood on the knife. When Wallace rides to the structure to avenge Miriam's death, a guard points out and says, "There," but his lips do not move. Wallace's hand appears behind his head, underneath his hair, but as the angle changes, his hand appears outside his hair, and then underneath again as he pulls out a weapon that could not have possibly been hidden. The spear doesn't have a tip, and it looks like it is attached to the horse to push the horse. As the soldier falls back, a holdback wire is seen attached to his back. An English soldier is referred to as corporal. That rank did not exist at the time. When Wallace throws the first archer over the wall, he comes up to him from the archer's right and picks him up, but in the following shot, Wallace is on his left. The soldier's helmet disappears, then appears again as the soldier falls. The cameraman on the screen when the English soldier falls. Hamish throws an English soldier flying on the side of the wooden stakes, but then he is impaled. As the magistrate falls down, you can see his modern blue pants under the chainmail. Magistrate's neck is already sliced when William puts the knife on his neck. Campbell's arrow wound disappears during Miriam's funeral. There is a white van on the background as Wallace stands up after he kisses Miriam over his shoulder. Through the trees, you can see a white van moving. McGregor standing on the back is only supposed to arrive in the next scene. Miriam's father cloth is on his head in one shot. In the next shot, his cloth is on his shoulder, then on his head again.
Straight in the wind, boy. I know it seems like a waste of good whiskey.
However, whiskey was not made in Scotland until about 200 years later. Everybody is dirty and bloody, but they were clean at the funeral in the prior scene. McGregor was finally introduced. This whole scene was edited out of sequence. It should have been before Miriam's funeral.
Thinking you can have your fun without us.
Matt Stevens fighting on the back, but Stephen is introduced to Wallace as a complete stranger in the next scene. When Nicolette is telling Isabel about Wallace taking Miriam's body to a secret place, Isabel leans her head against the post to her right. Cut back to Nicolette, and Isabel is leaning forward as she reaches out to hug her. Stephen's hair changes on his forehead between camera angles.
Almighty.
In order to find his equal, an Irishman is forced to talk to God. Yes,
Smart enough to get a dagger past your guards, old man.
You mean Ireland?
yeah, it's mine.
Wallace is ready to shoot the bow with the arrow notched, but later he's getting an arrow ready again. Fodron drops his sword when he gets hit by Stephen's short sword, but as he falls to the ground, the sword is back on his hand. Stephen pulls the sword out of Fodron's chest, and the sword is cut in half with two visible notches that probably attach to Fodron's vest. At the Battle of Stirling, we see the entire English army lined up on the background. In the next scene, however, the English army behind him has disappeared, except for a line of cavalrymen. But perhaps it is just a deliberate camera angle that excluded the army to keep the screen less busy and focus on the interaction between Wallace and the English commander.
100 years of theft, rape, and murder. Do that, and your men shall live.
There shouldn't be any arrows, since the English did not shoot them yet. One Scot gets shot in the neck, another gets shot in the foot. There is one arrow attached to his shield, however when the scene cuts he has two arrows attached to the shield. Kilts did not exist in Wallace's time. Arrow did not hit his ass. The same two Scots that got hit by arrows get hit again. Spears are lifted before Wallace gave the order. One of the most famous movie mistakes in Braveheart is the white car behind the charging horses. Spears are lifted again. Horses impaling on spears shows 1995 CGI blood. When the English cavalry charges and runs into the wall of spears, wires are seen as the Englishmen are thrown off their horses. Blunt spears impaling horses. English commander orders his infantry to advance. Infantry as a word was unknown in Europe in the 13th century.
Send the infantry. My lord, you lead them!
During the Scots charge, Wallace switches weapons from pickaxe, steel pickaxe, to bare hands, to sword, 2 pickaxe, and sword. The English soldier is hit with a club and blood splatters on the camera. Campbell falls and lands on the dead man. When the scene cuts, the way he lies changed. Wallace doesn't even touch the charging horse. Campbell using the hand that was supposedly chopped off. Hope you enjoyed my first video. I'm working on the second part and conclusion of all of the Braveheart movie mistakes for next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you thought about it in the comments below.